After an absolute war of a series against the Sixers, Knicks fans can exhale now, somewhat. Next up, an intriguing matchup with Indiana, a team that also leans heavily on a heliocentric point guard in Tyrese Haliburton. Now that the NBA world has experienced an awakening to both him and Jalen Brunson, there should be no surprises regarding their level of play. Unfortunately, Haliburton hasn't looked the same since returning from injury, as he's currently shooting under 30% from three in the playoffs. Even so, there are enough stylistic differences between the two teams to make this a close series, even if the Knickerbockers should be favored. Let's analyze the storylines in this matchup. Note: unless otherwise specified, all the regular season stats used are from after the All-Star break, when Indiana acquired Pascal Siakam and New York traded for OG Anunoby. Key storylines: New York's offensive rebounding. By now, everyone knows that the Knicks' bread and butter is grabbing offensive rebounds and generating second chance points. Post-All-Star break, they were second league-wide in ORAB percent at 32.2% and averaged 19.2 second chance points in their first-round series against Philly, which currently leads all playoff teams. It's not an exaggeration to say that New York's offensive rebounding won them the series, as they stole Game 2 by crashing the glass and regained the lead in Game 6 by doing the same. On the other hand, Indiana has been a poor defensive rebounding team for much of the season. The Pacers grabbed just 72.8% of opponent misses, ranking 20th in DRAB percent over that same post-All-Star stretch. With Siakam and Turner entrenched in the team's frontcourt, it's unlikely that Indiana will tweak their rotation to mitigate the issue. Thus, it's instrumental for them to take advantage of the transition opportunities that could open up when the Knicks crash the glass, which leads to their transition attack. Indiana's transition offense. One side will bend, and it'll be interesting to see if either team changes their identity. Only time will tell. The turnover game. Indiana's been a very responsible offensive team, having the second lowest turnover rate at just 11.4% in the regular season. Meanwhile, the Knicks are excellent at forcing turnovers, as their opponents gave up the ball on 14.7% of possessions. In their series against the Sixers, New York constantly trapped Embiid and Maxey to get the ball out of their hands. If the Knicks are willing to concede an Embiid mismatch, then they'll definitely be comfortable with doing the same with Siakam. Thus, assuming New York is successful in getting the ball out of Haliburton's hands, then they'll be able to force more turnovers and diminish one of Indiana's biggest strengths. Indiana's rim attempts versus New York's rim protection. While the Knicks' frequency of rim attempts and conversion rate are both below average, Indiana's shot diet is heavily concentrated in that area, 35.5% of shots taken within 4 feet of the basket, fourth most, and they convert their chances at a high percentage, 70.4%, sixth. Furthermore, New York conceded the second highest percentage of opponent attempts around the basket, 36%, so the Pacers will easily get shots off there. With that said, the Knicks were also the best rim protection team, as opponents were held to just 61.9% shooting around the basket, and they didn't even have OG for most of the season. The three-point battle. Another stylistic wrinkle to monitor is the number of threes that New York attempts. 39.8% of the Knicks' shots came from deep, fourth highest, in the regular season, and they also hit them at a good percentage, 37.3%, fourth. Indiana, though, might be the best team at running shooters off the line. They only let 30.1%, first, of opponent shots come from three, and they let in just 35.5%, fifth lowest, on those attempts as well. History, though, shows that teams don't have much control over opponent three-point shooting. With that in mind, it'll be interesting to see which team dictates this battle more. Even if the Knicks can continue bombing away, three-point shooting is so volatile that such a scenario might not be as beneficial as it seems, especially when it involves this series' X factor. X factor. Josh Hart's shooting. Apart from being the NBA's most unhinged personality, Hart has turned himself into one of the league's preeminent role players. The man makes millions to run around like a maniac, grab rebounds, and play defense, but one thing he's not paid to do is hit threes at a high percentage. In the regular season, Hart made just 31% of his attempts from deep, which is even lower than his career average of 34.4%. Therefore, Nick Nurse told the Sixers to ignore him behind the line, but Hart punished them by converting on 16 37s, 43.2%, threes. However, he also shot just 1/9 in games 4 and 5, and over 50% on triples in the other matches. For someone who is averaging checks note 46 minutes in the playoffs, having a hot or cold shooting night can swing an entire series, which is exactly what happened at the end of round 1. Prediction: Knicks in 6. Indiana matches up well with New York in many ways, but Haliburton being less than 100% should swing the series in the Knicks' favor. The Pacers will be disappointed to be sent home given that New York is banged up too, but hey, at least they beat the Bucks and can keep those game balls. All stat